Hey everyone, welcome to the Just Podcast.
If you're tired of being comfortable and want to take on living life from the context of 100%, fuck yeah!
Join us each week as we share lessons we're experiencing in this crazy game called life.
We invite you to play along and get your shit together.
Take responsibility for how your life is currently going, and at the same time, take on new, fun, and sometimes crazy shit.
We promise to challenge your thinking by being vulnerable, authentic, and straight up with what we're dealing with, what doesn't work, and what can.
Be warned, this is not your grandma's podcast.
Welcome to the Just Life Podcast. This is episode 59. This morning it is myself and Aaron. Today we talk about our finite resources, time, the things that we do and that we don't do, the relationships that we nurture and don't nurture, the power of marriage, and the power of choice. And that they are actually all within our grasp if we allow the knuckle-dragging ape that tries to take over to not take over. To throw at a banana and allow yourself to focus on the stuff that really matters to you. At the end, I also share one of my first poems. This is the first time that I've shared one of my poems on the Just Life, and I hope you enjoy it. So you touched on a little bit about your week. What was one really notable, worthwhile thing to share that you'd like to share? Just like a wow, I can't believe that happened, or a why the fuck is that happening, or I'm so glad that happened.
I mean, the only really notable thing from this week that kind of falls in that vein is just how quickly the week went by. Like, as I was mentioning off air there, getting ready to sell the house, and just the amount of stuff that goes into that. Like, this is the first time we've ever tried to sell a house.
Great.
And we've lived here for 10 years, so that's
A lot of stuff.
10 years worth of stuff, 10 years worth of things that you've been putting off and always been like, oh yeah, I've got lots of time to take care of that. I'll do that, much later. And just taking care of all of that stuff now is making me really realize just how finite the amount of time in a week really is.
Oh man, that's perfect. So perfect. We really do think that we have plenty of time left. Mm-hmm. Everything that I put off is because I think I'll have time to do that later. And it's perfect because this week it was a real, it was a week around building and creating momentum in life. There are things that just had to be done. They were mission critical. And there were times throughout this and really the month. So we haven't been on a podcast for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of reasons as to why. One of the reasons was a real focus on my end to get some new business through the door, and to do it in a way that that works for this family, not necessarily for the business that I'm a part of, but for this family. And so it was a different energy, a different commitment. Not to say that there wasn't always in the background of my mind to always be looking out for the big whale, as it were, but to also not ignore the smaller opportunities that would really make the difference, and to not and that it needs to happen right now. So there was no delay. There was no I'll do that later. I'll do that tomorrow. It was 2 weeks, really a month of focused, committed action every single day to move it forward. And there was some really great lessons that came out of it. So I have been on a journey of helping people find their purpose for a long time. Now, the caveat to that is, in helping other people find their purpose, mine gets put on the back burner. Even though, to a point, helping people find their purpose is part of my purpose. But it's not the only thing that I want to do, that I want to take on in life. But it has consumed much of my time to find the right people to work with, to sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed in order to do those activities. This podcast has been a really great vessel for myself in just checking in and reminding myself of what it is. Not necessarily to have the answer to the question, but to be in the inquiry of it, to like be looking. And every time I ask myself, what is it? I get to, if I'm really willing, I get to see what shows up. And here's the really cool thing. So, it's been messy and chaotic, like truly messy and chaotic in my life. However, I enjoy the chaotic nature of building something that is meaningful for myself. I find fulfillment in the uncertainty of it. If it is something that I have a curiosity for, then I'll invest the time in the unknown and the uncertain, the actions that are not laid out, that aren't going to give me a predictable outcome, because I feel good about that process. And then there are those people who are like, yeah, well, you should just really do the thing that you're good at doing. Like, I disagree, because, and I don't know if you and I have had this conversation before, but I am very good at a lot of different things. But I guess people call that a generalist. I actually hate that term. I don't know why. I feel like it's not really doing it the justice that most people would then associate to the word generalist.
Yeah, when you're talking about something, usually, generally, it doesn't have that same, like...
It's always at the top level. It's never really that deep. So you kind of sort of know it, but not really.
Yeah.
So generally, you have an idea or have a sense of it. So I am a generalist, and I'm clear what that actually means now, is that I'm able to inject myself in almost any situation and be able to excel inside of it if I choose to do so. And most people can't do that. Most people are paralyzed by the unfamiliar, the uncertain. Like if I can't predictably assess what the next step is going to be, I'm in immediate anxiety and uncertainty, and most times in a paralyzed state. I don't do that. I'll look at something and I'll uncover it, pull it apart, and make sense of it, and then I make my way. And I'm super good at doing that. What that's done for me is painted me in a bit of a corner in a lot of ways. Yeah, but you've got experience in technology and how to use technology and how to build websites and all the inner workings of how to build a website, and you can do animation and you can do this and you can do that, and it's like, you should just do those things. And I don't want to do those things. I've done it for a very long time, and I know that that's not what fulfills me, what really lights me up. And so inside of me now making a choice to say, no, I'm going to be over here. And over here is being with people and digging in and helping them get out of their own way, and leveraging all the tools that I've got in my tool belt to be able to facilitate that, not to change them, but for them to really see the path that they could totally take, because it would make a difference for them emotionally, mentally. They would have that fulfillment, and it's viable. Like it would actually be worth your time. It's not a pipe dream. And we got this pragmatic tendency to just do the thing that maybe we've always done because we know what's going to come out of it. Mm-hmm. It's going to pay the bills and have food on the table, and I mean, it's all inside of our own economic stability, right? This is the big driver right now. If you don't have that, then you are less than, right? Mm-hmm. Because you've made bad choices in your life. Well, maybe the bad choice is actually doing something that you fucking hate, even though it pays the bills and has your roof over your head, and in doing that, because, oh, hey, I've got time to do the other things. I'll make time to do the other things. This week, I had some really interesting conversations. Ernest Barbaric from the podcast Art of Meaningful Work. We sat down 2 days ago, and he was talking about, so it was a really interesting dichotomy between the two of us, because we're really aligned on a lot of levels. And then there are some clear differences. No surprise there, where he really has a concern for wanting to make sure that he and his family are taken care of, just like I am. What he does is, by almost an automatic nature, is fill up his space with things that he knows will help create that stability and security in his life and in his family's life. And as a result, his time just disappears. Mm-hmm. There's no time for the other things unless he really carves it out, but then it comes at a cost, right? And because he's already set those commitments in place, it's even harder to do that. And so he's been working on being more intentional with the space that's available, and he's admitted it's hard for me not to fill it up with something, so that at least the inner dialogue is calmed down. It isn't as loud and noisy, but then I'm burnt out and left like really feeling, what's the point of all of this? Why am I doing all of this? And then on the opposite side, I look at the commitments that I made for this year. And that was to carve out intentionally more time, more time for whatever is now showing up and available for me as an opportunity, that I can now take it. And that also comes at a cost. That came at a cost of, okay, so you don't want to do A, B, C, D, E? Cool, well, you won't get paid for A, B, C, D, E anymore. And now you have time. And so now what are you going to do with your time? Getting that it comes at a cost. And when I look at the contrast between what I've created as like making more space, because I'm in a place right now where I'm not 100% sure yet what it is. I have a sense of it. And I know I want to be of service, can be of service to many people, but it isn't the way it might typically be. And I don't want to be of service in the typical way either. And so I'm found in this space of super chaotic and an uncertain space. If I stay there, if I'm like in my head, thinking too much, concerned about the future, not actually doing something in the moment to move whatever it is that I've said was important in that moment forward, yeah, I am caught up in, oh man, I probably should just do that other thing, because that is the predictable way we go. We go where it's comfortable. This week was all about execution and building momentum. It was about acknowledging my worries and my concerns and doing the thing that I said I wanted to do anyway. It was, so 10 years, I've been married as of this week. And Maya and I went out for something to eat on Thursday to celebrate a few wins. There was an objective of having 3 or 4 business opportunities turn into paying clients. These are not in the vein of what I do in a brand building capacity. Those are a much more involved and a longer tailed onboarding of a potential client. These were consulting gigs in helping people optimize and streamline business process, elevating business models, getting people just to some space to think about their future of their business, but in a very tactical, more pragmatic. Now you got something to implement tomorrow after doing this work. And 3 of those clients turned over. They turned over because of this in ridiculously focused commitment to just doing the thing that makes a difference in that space. And that is reaching out to people, talking to people, letting them know what you're doing, what you're interested in pursuing, and then seeing an opportunity for them or not. And it was super obvious then at that point that we get in our own way all the time. The other thing that showed up for me was, did you watch the video by chance that I did on Facebook, on LinkedIn? It was kind of everywhere, actually.
I'm going to be honest, I did not. I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I know it's kind of a weird thing in this day and age.
I have this love-hate relationship with social as well. I'm working on it because at the end of the day, there is something that we all can be of service to another with, not like to sell yourself or to peddle your wares. I think that's where people kind of collapse it together, and then it turns into this weird, awkward, it lacks purpose and meaning, and it's noise. Now it's just more noise out there. But if you're actually coming from a place of just wanting to be of service and to share things that are meaningful because they were meaningful for you, it makes the difference. It makes the difference for me when I experience that type of content, and it makes the difference for others if I'm willing to step out and share some of this stuff that we share on a weekly basis anyways. And so there was something that I had shared in around contemplation, this idea of, so what happens for me, I've knocked out all the things that I say were critical for me to do at that moment, on that day, whatever the case may be. And now I have time. I've got space for something. And what shows up, you got to fill that space, man. You got to fill it up. You got to do something. You got to do something right now. And so we get into a busyness mindset, and we're throwing shit in there just to fill the space up. But it's not meaningful. It won't make the difference. It will keep you busy. And at the end of the day, you're going to wonder, what was the point of it all? Like, just no fulfillment. There was nothing meaningful about it, because it was just crammed with a laundry list of things that actually aren't that critical, but maybe needed to be done, but we're not the difference makers. And so for me in that space, I got to, and this is just a muscle that I'm building right now, pause and think about what it is that I'm up to, what it is that I'm looking for, what I've done, and not try and rush into something immediately afterwards, but actually spend time to think about if the next thing, whatever it is it going to make the difference for me and move it forward? And if it is, okay, then let's do that. If it's not, then I just need to keep paused and allow it the space to show up. And man, we are going so far and so fast and so hard. We don't allow any of that space. Almost everybody that I talk to, it'd be nice to be able to do that, would be the response. Like, well, I don't think you have a choice, man. If you don't create the space to contemplate and think about what's going on, you will burn yourself out. You will be a victim of mental illness setting in. And I keep talking about this. My whole family's been impacted by mental illness in one way or another. I lost my brother as a result of it. We are all walking such a fine line to our own asylum, our own mental illness, our own prison, because of decisions that we make that are actually not ours. And it takes us for a ride. And that little voice in our heads are consuming all of our thoughts and our actions, and they are not positive most of the time. They are riddled with worry. I see time for contemplation and ability to check and balance that. And it's more necessary now than ever. The other thing that came out of this week was connections with others. So you're a pretty chill guy, quiet, kind of keep to yourself a little bit.
I'd like to think so, yes.
Yeah. Would you say that you have those people in your world that you lean on for perspective, for support in in helping you navigate the uncertain areas of your life?
Yeah.
Would you say that you lean on those regularly?
Maybe not as regularly as I should. My process is usually more internalizing, going into my own head, just kind of sorting stuff out from there. I'm not great at necessarily reaching out to those people within my network to kind of help ground me or point me in the right direction.
Yeah, and I would say that's most people. So you're not alone.
That's good.
And the conversation that I had with my wife, and I think this is the biggest missed opportunity for a lot of couples, is that it starts and stops at that relationship. And how we set up that relationship to operate in an empowered context will make the difference. I look at we've had so many people call Maya and myself a power couple, and And I'm now really clear why we can be a power couple and what happens when we're definitely not a power couple. And I look at couples like Tony and Marcy, for example. There's a few others that come to my mind, but them in particular, like the rigor and level of accountability and responsibility that they have to each other is impressive. And I only know what's been shared, what they allow me to see. So I'll never truly get a sense of how it actually goes. But that said, with Maya and myself, I know how that goes. I know how she operates and the type of person that she is. And I know how I operate and the type of person that I am. And I also know that the steps to take to have us each live a fulfilling, purposeful life on our terms is my willingness and her willingness to step in when it is super uncomfortable and challenge the knuckle-dragging ape that's in the room in the moment. The one that's like busting shit up and completely unreasonable and is unwilling to compromise with irrational behavior. And when we do that, when we're actually able to stand up because I see her bigger than she sees herself in the moment, and I am unwilling to concede and allow her automatic mechanism to take over and run the show because I know what she's up to, that's when the difference gets made. Now, the willingness on the other side is completely out of my control, always out of my control. It's in her control. And the conversation that we had this week was the opportunity for us is to double down on the accountability that we have to each other. That we are the end of the line when it comes to the things that we say that we're going to do and haven't done yet and know we should do and need to do. Because we have the conversations about it, and I am not going to let you off the hook because I know it will make the difference for you. Now, to do that, have it on both sides. Now you've got a power team. You've got the proverbial, picking up from the muddy ditch on your shoulders to move it another 10 feet. And that person might be kicking and screaming, but you're doing it because you know it's a matter of life or death. That next 10 feet will have her be able to stand up or me be able to stand up and walk the rest. Whatever it is. We don't do enough of that. We allow each other off the hook. We justify, well, what am I going to do about that? It's your problem. Doesn't work. Especially for a husband and wife dynamic. It is the biggest missed opportunity, I would say, for most relationships. We've crafted our relationship in unhealthy ways sometimes, and we haven't even realized it. If I can be with somebody who will always challenge my life choices with tough love, a little naivety, and the intention to just get me to think bigger, we will win. If the relationship is one of, well, you figure it out, it's not my problem, and I can't help you, status quo will maintain, and we won't go very far. We'll go somewhere, and it'll be unfulfilling. Every single day, unfulfilling. What are you hearing in that?
I mean, it brings up a couple of issues that I kind of had this week, just with, the stresses of dealing with everything going on with our house right now, and a couple of the issues that Jessica, my wife, and I kind of ran into doing that.
Right.
And it's interesting seeing those parallels between different relationships. I mean, it's not something that you necessarily are always aware of, because
You don't talk about it.
yeah, and most times when you see like a couple out together, like you were saying, you only see that, like what you are being allowed to see. You don't see the relationship behind closed doors. So it's interesting to find those parallels, especially like within the same 7-day period.
So what were some of those parallels for you?
It was
And I totally get this is an awkward conversation for you right now.
well, it was a really, really silly argument on my behalf.
Right.
And I can own up to that it was basically completely my fault. But as we're setting up the house to get ready to move, I have a lot of old gaming systems.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessica had moved them into, we have a built-in little shelf unit that has like sliding glass on it. And, she took the initiative. She went ahead. She took care of that. She got it all set up and everything like that. And it looked good. My issue when I came home, though, was that they weren't in chronological order.
Oh, man.
Which, I mean, seems like such a stupid thing.
Yeah, cue the knuckle-dragging ape.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, and then, without taking any sort of moment to realize that she had, went ahead, she thought about this, she spent the time, she set it all up. I just went in there and started switching things around and, getting it to how I felt it should be.
Right. And then what did you do?
I mean, after a conversation about it, I apologized for my brashness, I guess you can call it. But yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just, in the grand scheme of things, did it really matter the order that they were put in there? Absolutely not.
Right.
But just in that moment, and without stopping on my part to think and just take that step back and just reacting, that's where we ended up.
Totally. And I imagine the rest of your day was a bit on edge,
Yeah.
a bit tense. And we hold on to that. And that's where our illnesses begin to emerge from, where our relationships get compromised and chipped away at, and it is all unspoken. It is all happening in the background, and nobody's saying anything because we don't want to get hurt again. We don't want to have it challenged again, and so I want to stay safe. But in staying safe, the irony in staying safe is you are ignoring what's been compromised, and it's getting weaker. And that doesn't work. That does not allow for me and my wife to be able to support each other when we really need support, to move forward towards whatever it is that I say that I want to move forward to, because I'm in communication about it. She's clear about it. She knows what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And that I'm willing to throw the ape a banana and do the thing that actually makes the difference, and not coming around, the metaphorical throwing things everywhere and making a mess. And I get that this is just a part of being human. It just doesn't serve us.
Yeah.
That's all. Right? It's not to deny it, and sometimes it's necessary. But we are living in a time where we do not need to tap into that like we did, 1,000 years ago, where it actually was a matter of survival, life or death. And if you do not react and take over, you die. That doesn't happen here. But it does happen on the mental game. Like the landscape's changed. I'm just clear that when I'm around people and I am listening to be with another person and out of my own mind of my concerns and worries and, am I going to get what I'm going to get out of this conversation so that I can move my agenda forward? If I let go of all of that stuff and I'm actually there with another human being, the experience every single time is one of fulfilling, meaningful connection on the other side and on my side. But that they actually share that with me, because it is just so untypical in this world that we have that type of meaningful connection with another human being, that it's become so rare, and we need it. It is so necessary, but we don't give it the time that it needs, that's required to get to know another human being, to actually be willing to sit there and listen and ask questions and listen and ask questions and actually be curious about another human being. And that's what makes the difference. That's what I want to do. Like, that's meaningful work for me, to be with people and have them feel like out of that conversation, they can now do what it is that they've been dreading doing because they're inspired and motivated again, like their tank has been filled. We don't have enough of that. We are siloed. We're in our own little cubicles, and we are battling our demons and monsters, and we are losing because we're doing it all on our own. We're losing, and I'm just not down with that anymore. It's unacceptable. So I'm going to do something a bit this is not something, I'm actually super nervous about it, to be honest. And there's a piece of poetry that I'm going to read on the mic, seeing as Wakefield's not here. And the fact that anybody can do this, so why the fuck not? But it's perfect because it just is. It is talking about this here, what we've been sharing and going through. Okay, so this is called Dreams. And this is one of my first pieces that I wrote. I do what I must to keep the balance, exploring and understanding what drives me. The eternal struggle of good versus evil, light versus dark, no surprise to me, no longer blind. You see, I am both and I am neither. And it's a reminder for me to ask, what fuels my dreams? And what keeps me comfy? Don't wait, says a quiet voice. Come see and be free. It's a fine line we travel, we who are no longer confined, following now a different path designed and redefined. We who are called crazy because we chose to break status quo daily, to stand up for our dreams and stand in the extremes so those around us may actually see our greatness. That's the cause, and it awaits us, and I will do what I must, reminded every day that these things, they take time. My mind wanders through the chaos much like yours, like a man thirsty yet drowning in the ocean. A fine notion given the fact that that place is my devotion. It's where I'd rather be, not fantasy, but staying submerged in and making sense of my self-created anarchy, where the incredible and unpredictable surprises we secretly long for, sing songs for, are made wrong for, are found. Those places that for some seem to occur like insanity. Yet I stay floating in chaos, the master key to unlock my purpose. Deep down I know peace without passion is atrophy unnaturally, and passion without peace as its guide leaves madness. This is plain to see, actually. Step out of the agony of your reality, your vanity, tap into vitality, and remember, these things, they take time. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, where do you go all in? Where do you look fear in the eye? Just decide. The choice is always yours. Fear is subtle and all-consuming. It is the mind killer disguising itself as false evidence, appearing real. Silence the inner critic. These conversations are machinations and evaluations of the mind. Fear not. Look behind the curtain, and you will find your wizard, blind and unkind, resigned to spreading his lies. Cast him out. You are the creator of your reality in its totality. Remember the discipline. It's not about where you've been, it's about where you're going. So keep flowing in the unknowing. Pay no attention to the sorrow. Choose not to be afraid of tomorrow. Soak in the afterglow that matters so of yesterday, and love the foreplay of today in every way. Throw out the need for perfection. Take the first step in a new direction. Are you a rebel? A truth seeker? A ripple maker? Finding truth and promoting change is a noble cause, but will you take her? What ignites you, excites you, delights you? You see, to be truly gotten, that is a dream many stand in awe of, like a pond abandoned by the river, the plot of too insightful, too careful, too concerned of what you'll be thought of. Don't wait for a start date. Without the strength to act and follow through your knowledge, it will stagnate. Years later, catching yourself saying, oh, but that was great. That idea, that dream. If only I had made the time to coordinate and not procrastinate. Don't lose sight. Do what you must do so you do what you love to do. Embrace the changes around you. Let inspired action flow through you. Its clarity and depth will quench the thirst of those around you. Create what you can do. For these things, they take time.